Star Wars Outlaws is like a banana ice cream sundae, with the banana being replaced with a fragrant bum sausage. That's my honest opinion. I like Star Wars Outlaws, but it's a very flawed product. The thing is, for me at least, the amount of fun I had playing it was enough to balance out the flaws. Before you go saying that I'm just another Ubisoft shill, I waited on buying this game for a while due to the bad press it was getting on launch, and I think this is a game I would recommend only getting on sale. I generally don't like Ubisoft games, if only for the god-awful launcher that comes with them. Outlaws is a single-player third-person adventure in an open world over multiple planets. It's primarily leaning into stealth, but there's also a bit of shooting involved, whether it's by blaster or by spaceship. Because I've waited to buy Outlaws, my playtime has been after patches 1.4 and 1.5 being released, which have addressed a decent amount of the feedback that I think has caused the review fallout, including things like mandatory stealth sections that forced a mission fail, as well as a bunch of other stuff. So that's something to note because it's a very different game now to its initial release. Outlaws is set just after the best Star Wars movie ever, The Empire Strikes Back. Now that's not an opinion, it is the best. Straight fact. I will fight you. We play as Kay Vess, a mercenary thief who is looking for the big score to help her settle down into the quiet life with her little pet friend Nix. After a few bungled jobs on Canto Bight, she gets into trouble with the local crime syndicate and has no choice but to flee. She manages to nab the crime boss's ship and yeets out of there at light speed, and in the process crash lands on Tashara, a temperate planet controlled by a different crime syndicate. From there, you're let loose to discover the world, treasures, and to ally yourself with your choice of different crime families in their war towards system control.
You're losing there. And, what do I call you?
It's Kay.
Alright, Kay. We'll find forward.
The overall story itself is fine. It's not going to win a ribbon or anything. It gives Kay good enough reason to go about her spacefaring adventure, which was enough for me. Her adventure takes her to a few different planets with different biomes, including Toshara, Kijimi, Akiva, and Tatooine. I want to talk a little bit about the characters. Kay is meant to be a thief, but she's a bit too naive for my liking. Thieves that survive this long are likely to be crafty and ready to be backstabbed. On the other hand, Kay seems to get the wool pulled over her eyes far too many times for her to be considered capable. I'm kind of surprised she hasn't been walked all over yet. Maybe Nix is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in their success. Nix is cute, and I'm sure will sell enough plushies to choke a nest full of rancors, and I like how he's implemented into the gameplay. He can act as a distraction, a saboteur, a sapper, and he can also open doors for me because he's a real gentleman. I've got a thing about touching door panels, it's icky. Nix's involvement in the moment-to-moment adventure was actually one of my favourite parts. He's cute and he's highly useful when juggling multiple enemies. Plus you can have a meal together in varying parts of the galaxy, which is just adorable. You get a crew together in the later part of the game for a particular heist, and while there's some really cool cutscenes, I felt like I didn't get to know them particularly well. Part of me was hoping for some side missions with the crew so I could bond with them a little more, but they're almost exclusively just voices on the radio telling you what to do at certain parts of the gameplay. They boil down to motionless profile pictures in the top corner of the screen, which feels like a missed opportunity. I was hoping for something a little more like KOTOR 2 or Mass Effect, where your crew could accompany you on missions and you could chat with them back at the ship. Kay Vess is more of a loner, so I guess this solo mission design fits with her as a character, but yeah, I can't help but remain a little disappointed. And yet the thing is, I still like Kay as a character. She's bold, she's sassy, loyal, resourceful, but she's got personality failings as well. She's got some pretty heavy baggage from her childhood, which she compensates for by occasionally being a little bit too arrogant. She can be impulsive and often gets sidelined by being too tunnel-visioned. She's certainly not the best written Star Wars character by a long shot, but she's also not the worst. There's also been some grumblings that she's too ugly. Even if that were a worthy criticism, most of the time you're looking at the back of her head. I don't know, I guess none of that really factors into my personal enjoyment of the story, so I was kind of surprised to find out people were incensed by any of this. I thought the 80s style mullet rocked. Kay's more thief than mercenary, so the gameplay relies heavily on stealth infiltrations, lockpicking, hacking, and then getting out. You can run and gun sometimes, which mixes the gameplay up a bit, and when stealth fails, I liked that I could just try and brute force my way to success. It felt way more like Star Wars, I think, and this is only since those patches that I've mentioned before, patch 1.4 and 1.5. The majority of the time, when completing either story missions, side quests, or contracts that you pick up from brokers around the galaxy, you'll want to stay stealthy. The stealth system, of course, involves crouching, because Ubisoft. You'll sneak behind enemies and not so silently crush their faces so far inside their skulls they'll be able to lick their own brain. Seriously, Kay's hands are so dense they should have their own gravity fields. Helmets are a joke to Kay. It's been another sore point online that a petite lady like her could KO 6-foot troopers in helmets in one punch. It's a fair and logical argument, but I guess my suspension of disbelief is not that challenged when in the same universe there's frickin' space wizards with laser swords gallivanting around. It's not exactly the same kind of disbelief I'm suspending compared with somehow Palpatine returned. A chick who can punch out a bigger dude doesn't really trigger my radar, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I get it, if you can't live with it, it's going to be hard playing this game. But I was happy enough to move on. There were mandatory stealth sections that caused a mission fail screen if you were spotted, which would have really pissed me off, but as I mentioned, thankfully due to that 1.4 patch, the majority of these have been removed, so you now can shift from stealth to open combat and back at your leisure. There's a bullet time thing that Kay can pull off where she's been shot at enough, which is pretty neat, but I didn't find I was using it too much. Also, with the 1.4, 1.5 patches comes improved weapon options. As you adventure, your enemies may drop their weapons, or you'll find a weapon rack that you can pilfer from. Be it assault rifles, snipers, Gatling guns, you can pick them all up and fire at will. At launch, these weapons would immediately be dropped if you climbed a ladder or went into a vent, or felt a light breeze pass by. But with those updates, you can now sling some of these weapons onto your back to be used when next entering combat. The ammunition on them is a little lacking, but there are skills that you can upgrade that can help improve that. I like some of the mini-games like the lockpicking and the hacking. Lockpicking is a rhythm game. You hear the pattern and click the mouse to mirror the pattern and the lock opens. I was glad of the different approach, and I haven't got sick of it yet, but if you do, you can in fact just turn these off to save yourself the hassle. The hacking ability is a version of the game Mastermind with alien symbols. Guess the code by eliminating which symbols are not needed and which are either in the correct place or are needed somewhere else in the code. Speaking of minigames, let's talk cards. Gambling is rife in the galaxy and Sabak is the game. It's not too complex to learn the rules, and there are a couple of YouTube videos that can teach you the mechanics pretty quickly. It's not as complex or as elegant as Gwent from The Witcher 3, but it's fun enough to play a few rounds and maximise your profits. There's a neat skill system whereby you can find experts in the galaxy and they're able to teach you and upgrade skills after you've done a few tasks on their laundry list. I've just got done playing Indiana Jones and it's reminiscent of that system, but I think I like this one even more. It feels organic and earned. The other menu you'll be checking out is the new Crime Syndicate Balancing Act, where you can do odd jobs for brokers who represent the different cartels. Your standing in those syndicates can go up or down depending on who you finish the mission for. There are choices to double cross them in some missions, which was a welcome treat in a universe where that sort of thing would happen on the daily. Getting in good with one syndicate will almost always mean incurring the wrath of another. If your rep gets low enough with one, they'll call a hit squad to track you down anywhere in the galaxy and take you out. Your allegiances are meant to shift between the groups, and while I liked this mechanic, I think it could have been leaned into a little bit more. Something like a combination of this and the Nemesis system from Shadow of Mordor would have been neat. Bounty hunters might come looking for you from the families who have an antagonistic relationship with Kay. I think that would have really spiced it up a bit. When you want to head out into space, you'll need your ship, the Trailblazer. The transition clips when taking off or landing the ships are pretty cool, but the flight controls out in space are bare bones. It felt a little like older space flight sims, but a whole lot less rewarding. There's a considerable amount of aim assist, and the overall effect is pretty unsatisfying. In fact, I tried to avoid space travel as much as I could because it felt like the weakest part of the game experience. The biggest draw card of the game are the atmosphere and the exploration. The worlds are really great, both beautiful and exciting to exist in. There's NPCs that populate markets and shout, and troopers patrolling that makes it feel really Star Wars-y. You can visit Jabba's palace and call in on familiar faces. Exploring the vast deserts and frosty cities, you're rewarded with extra quests or cosmetic treasures for Kay or for Nyx. And that's really cool. It's seriously some of the best fun I've had in exploring a game in a while. After Indiana Jones's more hemmed-in levels, these giant open spaces was a really nice change of pace. You can fast travel to safe zones on the planets, or you can use the speeder to get around on-world. The speed has been pretty fun to ride, and you can upgrade the engine and varying parts if you buy them at marketplaces. Some of the worlds like Tatooine and Tashara are quite big and open, and others like Kijimi are a little bit smaller. The worlds themselves feel authentically Star Wars, and I really dig the vibe it's laying down. Rarely have I felt more immersed in a Star Wars game, except for maybe KOTOR 2. Actually, Jedi Fallen Order was also pretty good in this regard. Overall, there are a lot of weak parts to Outlaws. The stealth is basic, and Kay's punches are somehow Hulk-powered. I still enjoyed the moment-to-moment adventure, and particularly when moving from stealth to combat, those moments felt really true to the Star Wars universe. The combat's nothing special, it's a functional cover system shooting situation. I did like improvising with weapons that I found. The missions can feel a little repetitive after a while, and so can the lockpicking and the hacking. The world itself, however, is rich, and really was a big part of my ultimate enjoyment of Outlaws. I think I've spoken enough on how great I think these worlds look and the immersion I experienced in them. I did want to mention the many bugs I experienced though in this section. There were the odd glitch or two that could count as cute jank that Ubisoft games seem to cultivate in droves, but there were also game-breaking bugs that seriously threatened to kill my buzz. I had so many crashes to desktop. It was actually that bad that I lost hours of gameplay footage to 2 separate crashes. There were other crashes that didn't kill my recording software, but there were just so many times where I was unceremoniously booted from my adventure. So while the world is pretty, the big downer was the stability of the game overall. Voice acting was pretty good throughout. I think Kay's portrayal was balanced. Humbly Gonzalez does an admirable job of putting forward those moments of Kay's impulsiveness. There's also more panicked moments in-game. Didn't think there was anyone in the supporting cast that really stood out. The villain of the story is Slero, and he's a pretty stereotypical bad guy. I didn't find the voice portrayal intimidating enough. He's just kind of there. I'll be totally honest and admit that halfway through the game, I actually forgot all about him. And then he shows up again at the end of the game and I was like, oh hey, it's that guy that I don't think likes me. Why was that again? That might be a little bit harsh to blame on the voice actor though. It's more likely a story issue. He becomes fairly irrelevant through the meat of the game. The soundtrack, however, bangs. Kay vs. Title theme opens with some really pretty dirty house beat, giving the flavour that she's someone that's come from the rough side of the tracks. There's this subtle rising of tense strings, an indication of the escalating situation on Canto Bight, and then the escape. And it all just fades into this Firefly-esque western gunslinging violin, which mirrored my playstyle of picking up jobs where I could and making a go of it in the big galaxy as a gun for hire. There's a good variety of instruments and style through this soundtrack. The Pike theme has this really heavy harpsichord intro that sounds cyber-synthetic, and then opens up later with some really creepy flute melodies. And of course, where the Empire is involved, it goes ball to the wall in the concert hall with echoes of full Star Wars orchestra. Wilbert Roget, I hope I got that right, does a better job at representing the story than I think the scriptwriters did. Because it's so fresh in my mind, I'm going to go back and compare to The Great Circle. I think while the soundtrack in both games is excellent, I enjoyed Outlaws more because I felt I heard it more in the gameplay. There was just better audio balance and better choices of timings and flourishes. So nice work, Wilbert. As I write this, Outlaws is currently on sale on Steam with a 35% off, bringing the retail price of $100 down to $65. As I said at the start of this video, I like this game. I think it's a good time for $65, but there are a few things that hold me back from recommending it at full price. There's lots of bugs and there's lots of crashes, and I'm not the only one that experiences them. Kay as a character doesn't quite match with her background as a thief. There's limited interaction with the crew, and the spaceship flying just plain sucks. Missions are often the same. It's a bit of an infiltrate, take the thing or take the intel, and then get out again. There's enough in the game for me to like. For example, I like the melding of stealth and the open combat. I like that the world and the atmosphere is on point. I love the idea of taking jobs from brokers around sleazy cantinas, and I think the skill leveling with experts you can find is inspired. I like Nyx, and I like his contributions to the gameplay. He's cute and he's useful. So now we come full circle back to the Pooh Ice Cream Sundae. There's great trimmings, but some of the core of the game is just a fragrant turd. Now I'm hoping with patching that turd can be somewhat removed, as has already been done with the patch 1.4 and 1.5, but for the moment there's still some work to be done.